I hope you recognize that song. It's by the Soggy Bottom Boys. I love that name, Soggy Bottom Boys. It's from a film that came out a couple years ago, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And the lead phrase is, I am a man of constant sorrow. I've got trouble on my mind. And I am troubled by the way that we're doing health promotion and the way that we're using digital health. And so I'm hoping to take a little bit of a different direction with the few minutes I have with you to talk about some better communication strategies for promoting health and using digital tools. It seems to me that we're focusing way too much on the technology and on the channels. The channels of communication certainly are important, but we get so hung up on the excitement of the new media that we really don't start thinking as fully as we should about the ways that we're communicating on those media. We also seem to think that one new medium that comes along becomes the answer. Whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whatever it is, we're not recognizing that we utilize multiple media together, and we need to figure out what are the unique strengths and weaknesses of those media, and how can we maximize the strengths, and how can we develop messages that will build meaningful health-promoting relationships. And it's that relational aspect of health promotion that I want to talk about. It kind of fits in nicely, I think, with what Craig was talking about social networks. Social networks are powerful because they're based on meaningful relationships that you have with people. As several speakers today have said, Vic Strecker, Craig, and others, health behavior change is very difficult. We underestimate how difficult it is. We overestimate our ability to initiate those changes with our campaigns. The way that we can really initiate change is by building meaningful, healthy relationships with people who will support each other over time. But how do you build relationships? Where do those relationships come from? They come from human communication. So I want to talk a little bit about communication, about messages. Effective digital health communication depends more on the quality of the messages that we exchange. It's not only the messages that we send, but messages that we exchange with each other, than on the media that we use. And then when you start looking at the digital media that are available, we start recognizing that there are some major problems. See if you can recognize some of these issues with the campaigns and programs that you develop. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand and say which ones are your problems, but how many of the programs that you've seen are boring and unimaginative? You know, black and white, just the facts, just the data. We've had this old notion that if we just provide people with the information, it will set them free. But what it really does is it puts them to sleep. It doesn't set them free. We tend to be overly technical. We provide health information in ways that most people just do not get and are not very interested in. We're too complex and formal, too bureaucratic. Sometimes the health information is insulting and disempowering, like, you are so bad. Look at you. You know, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? We're very directive and prescriptive, and very few people like to be told what to do. I know personally I hate to be told what to do. It's a major struggle in my life. They tend to have very static messages where we say the same things over and over again. Even though they don't seem to be working, we keep repeating ourselves. This is our way or the highway. We're not looking at your issues, we're looking at our issues. We know what's best for you. And most of the promotion is just not very entertaining. It's dull. So I want to talk about what we can do. I'm going to try and bring in some old communication research that was actually done in the area of pedagogy and in teaching and instruction, and see if I can apply it to health promotion, because I think there's some really interesting applications. Also one way. We tend to do a lot of one-way communication rather than engaging in dialogue with people. Digital health programs are often too artificial to achieve our health goals. How engaging are current interventions? Do they capture attention? Do they increase exposure? one of the biggest problems we found in most campaign evaluations is we have very limited exposure to messages. Typically, the messages have greater exposure with the people who are designing them and putting them out and paying for them than they are with the audiences that they're targeted for. Do they communicate clearly? Do they communicate humanely? Do they communicate persuasively? And persuasive communication is not easy to do. Do they adapt well to unique individuals? Do they promote immediacy? How many of you are familiar with this word immediacy? Only a couple of people in the audience. It's an interesting word. I remember I used to be a Greek restaurant I used to go to, and there was a waiter there who I loved. This Greek guy, and you'd ask him for something, and he'd say, immediately, I'll get it for you immediately. I used to love to ask him things. I love that response. Immediacy is not the same as immediately, but it means that it's involving, it's dynamic, it's right now in the here, it's exciting. Here's some definitions. Immediacy refers to communication that promotes physical and emotional closeness, comfort, engagement and caring, personal involvement, intensity and enthusiasm, authenticity. Think about some of the campaigns that you've seen and developed. How many of these characteristics are part of those campaigns? How many of them promote enjoyment? Health promotion should be fun, but generally it's not much fun. Where's the passion in digital health promotion? Do digital health programs move you? If they're going to be effective, they need to move you. Do they provide both sizzle and the steak? It seems with our focus on technology that we're more interested in the sizzle than we are in the messaging, than the content and the issues. Does digital often mean robotic? In some of my recent research, I've been trying to work with computer scientists to design avatars that are effectively competent, that can express emotion, that can do motivational interviewing that's meaningful, responsive, and interactive. And it's increasingly difficult to do because most of the interaction is pre-programmed, it's very staid, it's not very exciting, it's not very personal. Are digital programs soulful or are they soulless? I think that more often than not, there's very little soul. They're very shallow. Are they alienating or encouraging? I think of our preoccupation with fear appeals makes them more often than not alienating. Fear appeals are pretty good at raising consciousness, but they're not as good at changing behavior. Are they emotionally provocative or are they engaging? And I'm voting for being more engaging. So I want to talk about how to do that. I want to make them more interesting and relevant. Immediate digital health care, health programs that emphasize immediacy can do a number of things. They can increase access and exposure because they're more interesting, they're more dynamic. They improve the quality of communication and care. They increase consumer participation and involvement. They promote coordination of care services. They relieve demands on healthcare staff, and that's one of the things that's so attractive about the use of our avatar information systems, that we're automating a lot of things that normally were done interpersonally. So we're relieving time, and we're doing it in much more personal and patient ways than most human beings would be able to do or were willing to do. It can also reduce costs and increase efficiency, which is a huge selling point to healthcare executives. And I think ultimately, the use of affective interaction and health promotion will increase behavior change and improve health outcomes. The research that I talked about earlier, and at the end of the presentation I'll cite some of the sources for this, have found extremely strong responses primarily in instructional communication. Here's some of the outcomes that were found. That teachers who are immediate in their communications, and in a little while I'll talk about some of the characteristics of immediate communication, brings communicators closer together. It enhances expression of affect. It encourages people to express their emotion. It increases cognitive and affective learning. Think about whether these are good things that you'd like to happen from your campaigns. Increases perceptions of credibility and identification. How many of you would like to be seen as being more credible and have the people that you're working with identify with you and your goals? Enhances motivation and participation. Encourages communication and feedback. These all seem to me to be very, very good things that we'd want to have in health promotion. We also want to reduce resistance and verbal aggressiveness. Reaction and reactiveness is one of the biggest problems in dealing with behavior change. So let me talk about some of the things that lead to immediacy, and they're both nonverbal and verbal characteristics. Many of these were thought of and developed in thinking about interpersonal communication, but I think can be integrated very well into digital and electronic communication. Friendliness. How friendly are your programs? Animated. How animated and active are they? Involvement. Are they encouraging involvement, or are they telling somebody what to do? Excitement. Comfort. Caring. All of these are nonverbal aspects. Use of words are also really important. Sometimes I think we're not paying enough attention to our use of words. Are we using familiar terms? Are we referring to people, their personal experience, their name, their environment, their colleagues, their social system, their community? Or are we trying to do something generic? Involvement. Are we involving people and including them? Are we clear? Are we familiar? Are we demystifying complexity, or are we creating more complexity? Are we promoting interest? Are we demonstrating interest? Are we reinforcing behavior and providing opportunities for feedback over time? Are we sharing control? Now, a lot of this is based on a model of interpersonal needs. It's an old model that I really like that was developed by Will Schutz. And he talks about developing relationships as part of three different parts of building shared community with people. He talks about the three aspects. Inclusion. That if you want to have a good relationship, you need to let other people know that you are including them, and you need to let them have the opportunity to include you. So if we're going to be developing information systems that we want to be relationally powerful, we need to make them inclusive. Control. Now, we're good at controlling, but we're not very good at sharing control. And all of you who are in relationships know, especially if the relationship has lasted for any amount of time, that having a good relationship means you need to give up control sometimes and let others control you. Well, the same thing is true in health promotion, that we need more shared control. And there's not enough sharing of control, as far as I can see, in most of the health promotion efforts. And the last one is affection. And this seems to be a really hard one for people in health promotion because we're not used to being affectionate. But affection is really critical. People need to know that you really care about them. And I think this is a general problem with the healthcare system today, especially in the U.S. It is not seen as a caring system. It's seen as a bureaucratic system. It's almost seen as a necessary evil. But we need to express emotion, and we need to allow people to express emotion back to us. How often are you getting expressions of emotion from the audiences that you're targeting? If they're not expressing affection for you, it's probably because you're not expressing affection for them. There's the norm of reciprocity in human relationships that encourages people that when you treat them in certain ways, they reciprocate in kind. So we need to express opportunities for inclusion, control, and affection, and the expression of inclusion, affection, and control in all the work that we do. And here's a site. The best health interventions use immediacy to engage audiences using relevant messages, addressing personal concerns, are dramatic and interactive, and develop personally involving messages that tie into values and concerns, adjust to your unique needs and issues. Audience analysis is a critical part of this, and it's amazing to me how often we will do very expensive, big-scale, national program campaigns by some of the major industries and major government agencies that have almost no understanding of the audiences that they're targeting. What are their beliefs, values, norms, and expectations? And how do the messages match? Last semester I taught a graduate course in health campaigns, and we spent almost the whole semester looking at campaigns and pointing out how the campaigns did not match the audiences that they were targeting, and that's why they were not so successful. What are their experiences and concerns, and how does your campaign fit in with those experiences and concerns? What are their language skills and orientations? Lately, I've been working with a bunch of artificial intelligence experts in natural language processing, developing automated systems for evaluating the complexity of web-based health information systems for different audiences. And we found that invariably, across every one of the major government agencies that promotes health, that the information they were providing was inaccessible to most of the audiences who were in greatest need. They were using languages and terms that were totally inappropriate, in violation of national law that requires plain language on those sites. Are we aware of health literacy levels, both in terms of language and numbers? Are we aware of what their levels of motivation? We all know the stages of change model, but we don't utilize it nearly as well as we might to match our interventions to the unique motivational levels. What are their media use panels? So rather than coming with a hammer, I think a lot of times health promotion uses the law of the hammer. I have a new social media tool, and damn it, I'm going to use it. Are we matching the media to the audience, or using the best mix of media? Are the media that we're using complementing each other? Are they reinforcing? Are they changing over time as people's needs change? So it means that we not only check on these characteristics now, but we're tracking them so that our interventions continue to meet the unique needs of the audiences that we're targeting. Are we connecting to social networks? This is what Craig was talking about. Are they the right social networks? Are they the influential social networks? Can we help promote the development of those networks and move them towards supporting what it is that we're trying to accomplish? Immediacy helps to capture audience attention by connecting people on a very personal level. This means that we need to develop empathy. We need to use dynamism so it's dramatic and exciting. I'm not sure what's going on with all the work that we've done earlier in entertainment education. But entertainment education worked because it was dramatic, it was dynamic. We have to have an entertainment value to everything that we do. It provides vivid, relatable models, identification. Think of Bandura and building efficacy and modeling behavior for change. Adapting messages to users so that it's personal for them and it's not generic for everyone. It's very easy for people to discount messages that they don't think are for them. And even if they are for them, they often don't want to think it's for them. So you need to make sure that they're aware that we're talking to you. We're involved with you personally, and we care about you, and we want you to learn something here, and I want to help you achieve your goals. Uses multiple complementary messages that reinforce one another, rather than a one-shot repeated measure that does not seem to work very well. Illustrates key concepts in a narrative and visual way, not just linguistically. Provides subconscious encouragement and motivates people over time. This is based on a way of tailoring messages to the unique needs of the individual. The immediacy of information is largely influenced by source credibility. And I hate to tell you this, but most of the agencies that are promoting health are not particularly credible with the audiences that they're trying to target. I've been working a lot with different minority communities in promoting information about HIV and AIDS, particularly with African American and Latino audiences, and we did a lot of formative research and found out that the agencies that were funding this research were not respected at all by them. In fact, they were feared. And the worst thing we possibly could do is to let them think that this information was coming from the federal government. So we want to figure out who's credible and believable and utilize those sources. Once again, the social network. You're in social networks because you connect with those people. Familiar and comfortable. Knowledgeable about you and your community as well as about the issue. So one of the things that I've been doing is training people within communities to carry my messages. People who already are connected, but giving them the expertise to build on their own personal networks. Engaging, friendly, convivial, interesting. And we can try and do that, but if you're not a member of that community, if you're outside of that culture, your attempts to be friendly are going to be met with a lot of suspicion. Who the hell are you and what are you trying to sell me? Trust. Are we consistent and fair? One of the big problems I've seen in a lot of health promotion is that it's project-driven. We're in and out. We come into a community, we do something, funding runs out, we're gone. All the trust that was built is gone. All the things that we did are gone. And now the community is more resistant than they were before. So we need to find ways of building into the community more opportunities for change. Is it reliable? Is the person who's giving the information reliable and available when needed? And that's another reason for investing in the community. And the last one is sensitivity. Is the person providing the information somebody who you really believe cares about you and your welfare? The most immediate messages are close and familiar, easy to understand, dramatic and memorable, embedded in compelling stories, easy to apply, reviewable, interactive, and reinforcing. These are really critical issues, and I think this is almost like a checklist. Take a look at the promotion campaigns you're doing and see whether the messages are meeting these criteria. Here's my role in all this. I had to build something for me to do. Communication research, I think, is essential to this entire process. Audience analysis, needs analysis is critical for gathering the information about the audience so that we can figure out the best message strategies to meet their needs. This should be built into every health promotion effort that we do. Message and media testing. Even if you do the best research, you may find that when you actually go out to utilize the messaging, that it doesn't work the way you expect because life is complicated and people are strange. And you better find that out with a small sample and a pretest than find that out after you roll out your national campaign. And that's happened. There's been a lot of boomerang effects with big multi-million-dollar national campaigns where they really wish they'd done a little bit more message testing. There's a couple big national campaigns going on right now that I'm really, really concerned about. I'm not going to mention names, but the FDA tobacco. No, I'll talk about that with Sanjay. You know, I think we need do a little bit more pre-testing. Usability testing is critical. Formative evaluation so that you're gathering data as you're going so you can refine and update. Summative evaluation. Does it work, and does it work on a budget? Is what you're getting worth the amount of money and time and effort that you're putting into it? And part of that budgetary issue is how do you move that campaign into the community so they own it and they run it so that you're not constantly spending time and money and energy. Here's some references to some of the research about immediacy that has found tremendously strong effects, but there's a really good evidence base, and this is just a small piece of it. So I know that there's demonstrated effects. If we can apply the issue of immediacy to health promotion, I think there's tremendous benefits. But there's got to be a greater focus on the kind of messaging that we use and our connection, our personal connection with the audiences that we're serving. Thank you very much.